up the comments, see who's here today, take attendance, give it a second. I just got to send one thing. Say hi when you're here. And happy Monday. No one here yet? I feel like I see all the comments come in at once, like a minute or so after I start, but I like to wait for them. It makes me feel like I'm not alone. Talking to myself. Perfect. Ooh, Veronica, I'm so happy you're here. I love having girls in here. Had a couple, so especially when I talk about issues like pertaining to women, which we're not going to talk about today, but hello. Okay, I'm seeing some new names. Give me 1 second. That's cool. So for those of you, first things first, this is the only live today. So usually I have Monday Fun Day, which means I go live for like an hour and a half here. We talk about, an actual topic. And then at 8 p.m. Pacific time, I go live on my OnlyFans and we get freaky over there. But that's not happening today. So if you're on my OnlyFans and you're looking forward to that, I will make it up to you next week or later this week. And do 2 lives because I usually do 1 nude live stream a week. They're free. Once you subscribe, you can join. And they're usually like 40 minutes to an hour of me just, in my birthday suit, living it up and doing some things. So yeah, I usually do once a week, but I'm not going to do it today. So I'll do it twice a week next week. Hazard Stint. Oh my God. I've missed you guys. I've been busy traveling. I haven't even looked at my phone much. So I am behind on getting back to everybody, but including my OnlyFans subscribers, like the messages might be a little backed up, possibly too. Oh, cool. Yes. All right. So today we're kind of doing a part 2 of the Logical Fallacies episode. I got a lot of people reach out to me and they liked that episode. They felt like it's straightforward. It teaches you something that you can actually go out into your daily life and see and use, especially when you're discussing various topics or you're getting in it doesn't have to be like a formal debate, right? Even just talking to somebody, or when you hear information, you may be able to spot, okay, this is a fallacy. And, this isn't how you make a sound logical argument. So today I want to go and do 10 more. So if you didn't watch last week's, it should still be up on the Twitch. I don't know, what is it called? The Twitch. Is it called a VOD? Oh, they're also on YouTube. I forgot about that. But I think they're called a VOD. I used to think people that were saying VOD were misspelling vid. So that tells you the extent of my knowledge. But you should check that one out if you haven't, because I talked about 10 common logical fallacies last week, and today we're going to do 10 more. And since I don't need to, I know last time we had to rush through the last 3. So if anyone has any, I feel like a teacher, if anyone has any questions from last week, we can bring it up today and we can maybe have a little more time and not have to rush through the rest. So great. I wish I had a better handle on it when I was younger. Yeah, me too. I learned these in a college philosophy class, but this is something that you want to practice, pointing out, and even pointing out in yourself. So I would pretty much, I'd be confident in saying that all of us have used logical fallacies, and I'd be confident in saying that a lot of us use them on a regular basis, because they're fallacies for a reason, in the sense that we all tend to think this way. Even though it's a fallacious way of thinking, we all tend to think this way. These kind of arguments appeal to us. We talked about last week how they're used a lot in politics, trying to persuade a bunch of people into something, and that they, just because they're fallacious doesn't mean they don't work. In fact, sometimes they work better than making a sound logical argument, because so many people aren't thinking logically. So if your audience isn't thinking logically, then when you make a fallacious argument, it doesn't, I would say Trump is a good example of this. Trump is doesn't know how to make a sound argument, I think, to save his life. He doesn't have conclusions that logically follow from the premise. His premises are hardly ever true, and you would need to do just very little research to see that. And he's the king of using logical fallacies, whether it's on the debate stage, etc. And people think he's a great debater. He's not actually a great debater. He's great at using these kind of fallacies, being aggressive, and making his team, his fans, be like, yeah, his fans are, I say fans, his supporters, I would call Trump supporters for the most part fans, not all of them, but I think we can definitely say that there's a subset of them that operate as a really crazy fan base. And they're not looking to Trump to make arguments. They're looking to Trump to destroy and own the opposition. So again, just because they're fallacies doesn't mean they don't persuade people, but they shouldn't persuade people. And if you actually want to learn how to think, so I talked about this before, found you my recommended a while ago, but haven't been able to drop into a stream. Yay, I'm glad you're here. This one, so some people are confused and they think on Twitch I'm like showing my titties and stuff. That's on OnlyFans, which we usually do right after this, but today we're not doing that. But yeah, usually if that's your thing, I have a lot of people that listen to both. And I appreciate whatever type of content you choose to engage with of mine. But yeah, like I was saying, if you're actually going to do like a logical reasoning exam, so like on the LSAT, you need to be able to know this stuff. You need to be able to know how to argue. You need to be able to know when an argument is logical and when it's not. Okay, long intro. Sorry I missed you last week. Oh, no worries. And I love when you guys are in here live. What's the topic today? We're doing 10 more logical fallacies. So we're doing 20 total. I could even do, there's a lot. You could go into 30, 40. I'm just trying to do, like, I would say the 20 most common. So I did 10 of the most common last week, and then we're going to do another 10 that I think are very common today. All right. So the first one, I'm surprised I didn't mention this last week, but I looked at my notes from last week and I didn't. So this is a very common one and one that people use all the time. And this is one that's very easy to point out. So if some of the other ones, like you need to think a little bit or you forget or the name is a little bit, like I even have those. And the anecdotal evidence fallacy is one that not only people use all the time, but it's really easy to identify when people use it. So an anecdotal evidence fallacy is arguments that rely heavily on anecdotal evidence and tend to overlook the fact that one example or a small number of examples can't stand alone as definitive proof of a greater premise. So you see this all the time. Porn addiction is real because I think I was addicted. Or the example I have, sex workers aren't usually smart because none of the sex workers I know have even graduated college. Or sex workers don't graduate college because the sex workers I know haven't graduated college. So anytime you use examples from your personal life or you use your personal experiences to make broad claims that apply universally or generally. So I make it a point that, and maybe I don't do this all the time perfectly, but I make it a point that when I'm making an argument because of my personal experiences, what I try to say, it's really easy to fix it. You just go, in my experience, men behave like this. In my experience, right? But I'm not going to say men behave like this because of my experiences. Those are very different. And being able to point out these things, being able to see the difference between men behave like X because of my experiences, or in my experience, men behave like X, that is how you actually learn critical thinking skills. You need to be able to differentiate between statements like that if you want to be a rational thinker in society. And the reason I have a purple hair tie is because I was with kids all weekend, my cousin's kids, and I like literally just got off the plane actually a couple hours ago. So sorry. So yeah, super, I feel like that one's pretty straightforward, but people use it a lot. And we all, especially when, unless you've researched a topic or unless that there is even like a consensus on a topic scientifically or medically or whatever, you want to use your personal experience because that's the only evidence that you have. But again, your personal experience can't be evidence for anything really past yourself. Hey, show us fool. The reason I read those in an accent is because my parents are Middle Eastern and they talk in an accent every time a Middle Eastern man comes on. And he's like, show body. I like read it in that accent. Okay. I mean, last time you mentioned that questioning the source of an argument of information was a fallacy, since even if XYZ corporation does a study, that doesn't mean the study isn't legit. But I would think that outside of formal deductive reasoning, when we have to deal with authorities and do not have time to replicate studies for all our beliefs, being aware of the source is a good critical thinking skill, one which is taught especially in regards to critical thinking about ads on TV. Well, so what you're not getting is you can look at the study. So if you say X corporation funded this study and that study is now in a journal and you're looking at the method, they're not allowed to lie on the study. They're allowed to take conclusions and put it in their ads that don't follow from the study. They're allowed to have a study that doesn't have the best sample size. They're allowed to have a study that isn't double blind, that doesn't have a control group. They're allowed to have a study that pulls from a biased group of individuals, but they still have to have a study, and they do usually have to disclose certain things like that in the limitations part. Otherwise, it won't get published. So you have to understand how science works. So you can be like, I don't know about this. Let me look. Pfizer funded this study. Let me look at the study. And you're like, oh, I don't think the methodology was good or whatever. Or, oh, they only pulled people, or this is how they did the stats. They didn't take the stat. They only looked at this age group. They only looked at, so for instance, I used this example last week. Me and somebody were arguing over if wearing a bra is worse for your boobs all the time if you have bigger boobs or better. And I'm like, well, there was this 15-year French study where women who went braless, their boobs ended up perkier, and they had some reason for that they whatever. And then, but if you look at the study, they didn't have a lot of women with larger breasts, and the women were between ages 18 and 35. So you would say, instead of being like, oh, well, the person who funded this study, has some incentive to say that women without bras, whatever, you would say, okay, well, no, the methodology here, we can't use this study to talk about women over 35. We can't use the study to talk about women with larger breasts. So you can look at the study and you can figure this out. So like, for instance, when they say like 4 out of dentists think this is the number one, blah, blah, blah. If you actually go look at that, you'll see that those dentists work, like where they got their participants for the study. So you don't have to discredit something just because of the source. Look at the source and find your own independent, objective issues with it. Then you're not committing a fallacy. So if I say, I don't like this poll because it was done by a right-wing news organization, it could still be right just because it was done by a right-wing news organization. Now, if I look at the poll and I look at the questions, I'm like, oh, they asked people this question. This question is kind of leading. That's why I don't subscribe to the study, not because they are the ones that, I guess, funded it or did it. We want to see your height. No, you're in the wrong place, my love. There's no burden of proof for how fine you are. Thank you. Right. Not anyone has the time or even intelligence, knowledge, education to do that for all their beliefs. So they have to rely on other methods, and then other studies come to the opposite conclusions anyways. So then you can weigh the studies, weigh the evidence. But thinking like this, oh, we don't have time, so let's all just commit logical fallacies. It's why we have so many fucking idiots in our country. It's why so many conspiracy theories run fucking rampant. This is not how you want to encourage. Oh, well, if you don't have time, then just, guess. That person looks credible. That person doesn't look credible. That person's, this race. They're probably like, you're just going based on judging people, and you're using your lizard brain to make preconceived judgments on anything. That's not the way to think critically. Sorry. So just to say, oh, well, that conclusion is different than this. Well, look at them. See where things might have been different. And a lot of scientists do the work for you. Researchers do the work for you. They do know, oh, this contradicts this study. Well, okay, this sample size is bigger. I was just looking at a study on if men who use like if men who use these like aggressive kind of red pill, but in the 90s it was called just like pickup artist tactics for women, what kind of women they're more likely to work for. And they were looking at factors like, what is it called? Sociosexuality, where you like to have more long-term deep relationships. And then they were also testing for high sexism and benevolent sexism and seeing all that. And they did a college study the first study was with college students. And although 3 out of the 4 hypotheses came true, one of them didn't, which was, I don't remember which one. I don't want to give you guys the wrong information. And maybe I'll talk about this study later. But then when they did the second study and it was a general population, all 4 came true, or all 4 were borne out by the results of the study. And they were like, okay, well, maybe if on college campuses, this is a little different than the general population. And that's why this one was different. So you look at the sample size and you look at where they're getting, how the study was conducted, and you can come to these kind of conclusions. Well, they only looked at college kids, so maybe this isn't representative of the rest of us, or they only did this on this age range. Maybe dating when you're over 40 is like this. So you can do that. But to say that, oh, I'm just not going to trust, that's just lazy. You're being lazy. I know you don't have time, but if you don't have time, then don't speak on a topic that you don't know about. I'm very careful to do that. Like some of these, like, appearances that people do on these podcasts, which I might do, I'm like bewildered. It bemuses me that like you go around the table, you're like, what do you think? How many people do you think, like, what is the percentage? Like people are asking people to guess percentages. What percentages of women do you think want a man over 6 foot? Why are we just going around just like saying shit, like just out of our ass? Like, I don't understand how this is going to be conducive to anything other than people just sitting around for shits and giggles. Like nothing is being learned here by all of us just going around a very biased sample group full of like Instagram models and OnlyFans girls and people on YouTube streamers. And we're just talking about what we feel. And then we're using that to give dating advice. It's crazy. All right, sorry. I went on a tangent. Also, I'm going to turn on this light because it's going to get dark outside in a second. And you guys to still be able to see me. Also turn this up. No. How does this work? There we go. Okay. Maybe that'll help a little. Okay. All right, we got some chats. I'm not in a rush today. Most recent fresh and fit. So my moderator is saying this. Had a COVID denying trad wife who cited 1 million studies to prove her points. Yeah. And the thing is, it's hard when you're actually in front of people and they're like, well, I have a study that says X. And you're like, well, I have a study that says X. And then you're like, well, you don't always aren't able to until you have the chance to look and slow down and look at the study and been like, so there's one that they use a lot on using prairie wolves to show that, there's also a study that they also use. So they use 2 to say that, when people, what's the word? When women have too much casual sex, they're not able to pair bond. And even the person who made one of those studies on the cuddle hormone, what is it? Oxytocin. She's like, yeah, they misrepresented the conclusion or the results of the study. And that's not what, I don't think that conclusion can be borne out by the results of the study. But if you just are like, oh, I know the study, like you're not wrong, but that's not what the study actually proves, and you're not able to always know that unless you're able to go into the study and everything. So it can be difficult. And that's why you don't want to argue with people who are arguing in bad faith, but sometimes it's the internet and that's what you got to do. And so you can try to be as prepared as you can. Read studies, you guys. I know it's not fun. It's fun to just read the abstract. If you don't have time or you're not that interested in a topic, sure, read the abstract. You don't have to read the whole thing. But if you actually want to be able to engage with the topic, and that's why you should not be ready and willing to go battle or debate on any topic. You should be very well informed if you're actually going to go out and speak on something, right? And there are political junkies out there who their job is to know a bunch of stuff. So they know things with regards to social issues. They know things about economic issues when it comes to politics. But, I don't think they should go and debate, I don't know, like AI or AI threat, because they might not be an expert at that. So like for me, if I want to go talk about something, I like to at least so I feel comfortable talking about sex work. I've done a lot of research on sex work. I've done a lot of research on legalizing sex work and the different models like that, like legalization, decriminalizing the Nordic model. Like I like to talk about that. I feel like I'm well informed. I'm well informed on specific areas of the law. I'm not super informed on other areas. So another practice that I think is just good practice is don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I don't know isn't a bad word. I don't know doesn't mean that you are stupid. It actually means that like when someone would finish on a test early and that didn't necessarily mean they did bad. It's just like they know what they don't know. I was one of those people. It's like, and I think a lot more people should be like on an exam, sure, guess, sit there, ponder. But I'm like, if I don't fucking know this and I have to make something up, I'd rather make something up now than make something up when I have 5 minutes left. So to be able to say, hey, I don't know, that's not a sign of defeat, right? And I think this is evident when it comes to areas like where people try to do this gotcha when it comes to like atheism, and they're like, well, then how did the universe come to be? And you're like, I don't know. And they're like, I'm like, but you don't know either. And that's okay. We just don't know. I just didn't make up something the way you made up something, you know? All right. Right. Not everyone. Okay. Sorry. I'm super behind on these. And then there's the issue of not being experimental on human beings without the ethical review board shutting it down. Plus, most of the studies have extremely guarded conclusions. What do you mean guarded conclusions? As technology keeps advancing, I think we'll see scientific research benefit in ways we can't imagine. I do too. Well, in regards to these talk shows or whatever, keep in mind that even on the news media like Bloomberg, they invite people to talk about technical subjects without any PowerPoint or statistics behind them to show their point. Well, you could look like it depends. So if it's like an expert on something and you're talking about news where it's like a little news bite and someone comes in and they say stuff, they're not going to have a PowerPoint behind them. You can then go on and do independent research. You just seem to be a fan of wanting to see short snippets of information, whether it be in a tweet or in a 7-second news clip, and you want to be able to trust it or distrust it based on your preconceived notions on the person relaying that information. That is not critical thinking. That's lazy thinking. And that's just what it is. What's sad about hard to do this amount of digging, especially when trying to debunk a claim. I watched Vosh tackle 1 or 2 claims on a particular topic. It took forever to find the source the claim relied on, and then another decently long amount of time to read through the paper and critically examine the paper itself. It was like one claim from one dude on a podcast like GRE or Tim Pool. So hard to do in real time. It is hard to do in real time. But not everything has to be done in real time. And there's this pressure for someone like me, especially because I'm like, shit, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to be in these spaces. I want to talk about these topics. So I'm the one that has to do it in real time. You don't have to do anything in real time. You can listen to me and listen to someone else talk. You can hear our points and you could be like, okay, I'm going to do research on this. And again, you can't do this with every topic, so you're not going to know about everything. Like one of the craziest things that was like a big, like, and it's obvious, but you don't really think about it, or I didn't really think about it until it was brought up to me like this. I have so many books I want to read, and I have so many things I want to learn. And one day it just hit me. I think I heard it somewhere. I'm not going to be able to read every book I want to read. Like, I'm like, oh, I want to read this and this and this and this and this. And I have like a list of 20 books. I'm not going to be able to read all the books I want to read before I die. Even if I live until I'm 100 and I read for an hour and a half a day, I'm still going to want to read books that I'll never be able to read. I'm going to want to know about topics that I'll never have the time to research, especially if I get busier, one day have a family, anything like that. Like I'm done. I'm not done, but I mean, like, I can't learn everything I want to learn. So you do have to focus your time and energy on topics you find engaging, but my thing is, if you are going to listen to a debate on something, then take an extra whatever amount of time if you're unsure to actually dig deeper onto those points. So, okay. AI will be a great tool to scan catalog upon catalog of studies and compare way. Yeah, eventually. I wouldn't say do that right now. There's a case of lawyers that used it, and all of the case law that they used was wrong. And a couple of them didn't exist. So AI isn't there yet. Be careful, guys. Don't use it on real important homework. And that blows my mind, since I would encourage their guests to bring PowerPoints with the statistics and graphs they're using to come up with the conclusion. Well, I trust the authorities who say that global warming exists. I don't study global warming, but I trust the scientists. So I think it's fair to say, but you have to admit that like for instance, with global warming, I haven't looked deep into it either, but I would say, the scientific consensus is that global warming exists. So I'm going to make an appeal to authority here, but I can't say with 100% certainty that global warming exists based on anything other than that is a scientific consensus. Um, so if I wanted to talk about global warming with somebody, if I wanted to discuss it, I would do independent research. So you should know how limited your knowledge and your views are on different topics. So I can sit here and be like, I believe in global warming, but I know that the reason I believe in global warming is because I trust the scientific consensus on this, and I don't have any information outside of that to make a decision, nor am I very knowledgeable on how scientists know there's global warming. If I wanted to, I would look up and I'd be like, oh, scientists know there's global warming because of this. They measured this in the air. They like I'm so ignorant on this. But I know what I'm ignorant on and what I'm not ignorant on. So you don't need to fight everything to the death. Like, oh, you believe in global warming? Yeah, I do. Why? Because the scientific consensus is that there's global warming, and I haven't looked into it, so I'm limited in how well versed I am on this. And if there was evidence that came to me that changed my mind that I thought was legitimate, I would change my mind. I'm hoping nobody in this stream is super religious and we're going to just die on the hill of this is what the book says, this is what the research says. So we're like, you should always be ready to follow the evidence wherever it leads. So if there's evidence right now that says X, but then there's better evidence, like the way to get famous in science is to disprove. You're looking constantly to falsify theories in science. So when a theory is adequately falsified, you shouldn't be like stuck to this, right? Change your mind. And I think that's one thing that can help, like we're talking about debating and stuff and intellectual curiosity. Don't debate to win, debate to learn. Listen to debates to win. Don't listen to debates because you want to see your side own the other side, because then you're just going to already be on a team. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, you need to have knowledge about everything and be a specialist in some area. Once you admit it, you don't have any idea it will free you. You don't have to have knowledge in everything, but yeah, you should have a couple things like, I'm assuming whatever you guys have your job in, you know more about that than the general population does. Maybe some of you have been really interested in some topic and you wrote a paper on it in college, or you're like, oh, I wrote a paper on this, so I know some of the studies that back this up, and I know the counter arguments to this. But you may not know that on another topic, and that's okay. You could say, I don't know about this. I didn't write a 60-page paper on it. Christian education taught me I don't know, therefore God did it. Yep, that's called the God of the gaps, I think is what they refer to that. Yeah, your tits are huge, but you're like really smart. Thank you. I know your eyebrows done. They look really beautiful. I feel like I've had the same eyebrows forever, but thank you. I think I saw that GPT just made up cases to support the litigator's argument. He got in big trouble for that. Yeah, don't rely on ChatGPT. To be frank, we're lucky to have modern medicine. I'd be dead from malaria if not for, can't even say those, but we should still question medicine rather than considering it sacred. The entire foundation of science is to question it, thereby coming closer to the truth. Yeah, but here's the thing: as long as you're questioning it in a healthy and sane way. Like if you're questioning it in a fallacious way, if you're just questioning it because you're using one of these fallacies and all of the reasons you don't trust it are riddled with incorrect thinking, then that's not a good reason to question it. But if you can have legitimate questions that aren't riddled with fallacies, of course. Okay. Thoughts on Jordan Peterson? Oh, I think he is so intellectually dishonest, especially when it comes to religion. If you guys are like want to see a really good breakdown of it, like Cosmic Skeptic did a really great video just deconstructing Jordan Peterson on religion. And he doesn't really he talks about like it's just so dishonest the way that he talks about things, like, and a lot of things, his word salad, mixing up epistemology and ontology. He knows that his audience doesn't really get it, and he uses really religious language for non-religious things. And if you watch the video, it's pretty clear that he is an atheist, but he just uses fancy word salad to make it seem like he's not an atheist. And that's just one of the many problems I have with him, but it's too much dishonesty for me and just annoying. Nearly done his 12 rules to put life book. So you can, I'm not saying you can't get valuable information out of the book. Like, again, I can separate the claim from the person making the claim. You asked me what I think about the person, so I told you what I think about the person. Now, if he tells you, like I said, to clean your room and work hard, that's good advice, whether it comes from Jordan Peterson or Hitler or anybody. But what do I think of him? I don't respect him because I think he's dishonest, and I don't like dishonesty. His vocabulary is not exactly, yes. All right. Okay, only because I was uneducated. Christian, explain want to falsifying theories, because that sounds counterintuitive that you want to prove something incorrect to prove that it is correct. I understand the concept of this. Okay, so falsifying a theory means that there is some type of theory that was tested. Like, let's say, I mean, do you guys remember when we used to do these in in school? Like, I think I had one like are there more bubbles in like cold water or hot water? And then you have a hypothesis and you go through the scientific method and whatever, and then you have your conclusion. So if someone were to falsify that, it means that they do a study that comes or they disprove your theory based on their own study or data or research. And that is something that if something's not falsifiable, that's a problem. So like the idea of God, you can't falsify the idea of God. So it's not falsifiable. It's not testable. Things in science need to be testable, and so they need to be falsifiable. Separate the art from the art. Theory of evolution. Yeah, there you go. And I mentioned this last week. Theory means something very different in science world than it does in regular world. So if, I said this last week, but like if it's like, well, I have a theory that Jordan is actually like insecure about his feet. That's why he's always wearing socks. Okay, I don't know. That's very different than the theory of evolution. Okay. All right. I can't believe we've only done one fallacy in the last 30 minutes. So let me go to the next one. So this next one is like, it's like under the umbrella of an ad hominem. It's called tu quoque. So what does tu quoque stand for? I don't actually know, or I'm sure I read it like a while ago, but I don't remember now, and I'm really curious. What does tu quoque mean? It's not going to tell me? What, like... All right. Oh, the name comes from Latin, and it means you also. Okay, so it makes sense. So what this fallacy is, it's a discussion technique that intends to discredit the opponent's argument by attacking the opponent's own personal behavior and actions as being inconsistent with their argument, therefore accusing hypocrisy. So it's part of an ad hominem because you are claiming that a claim isn't true because of the person making it rather than disproving the claim itself. But this is a more specific example where it's like you are attacking. So if I say, hey, it's healthy, it's good for you to exercise, and you're like, well, you don't exercise, so you're wrong. I'm not wrong. It might still be good for you to exercise. It doesn't matter whether I'm following my own advice, right? So this is literally telling people that their advice or their claim must be wrong because they don't also follow it, or because they're a hypocrite in any way. Again, that has to do with the person. It doesn't have to do with the claim. Whether or not going outside is healthy for you, it doesn't matter if I go outside or I don't go outside, or it doesn't matter if I exercise or I don't exercise. Whether or not working out is good for you is independent of me. If it's good for you, it's going to be good for you whether or not I do it. If it's bad for you, it's going to be bad for you whether or not I do it. Or I guess not good for you. It's kind of a false dichotomy, but you know what I mean. Were you ever a teacher? No. I actually don't think I'm good at teaching. Okay, so my moderator says, I don't know if you're trying to falsify ideas in science necessarily, but you're looking for the most true statement. You can't be bought into something that it jades you towards novel ideas. Yeah, so you're looking for the most true statement. I think that's true. Like, you're not trying to falsify things, but you're trying to look for the truth. And whenever something if we thought something before, like we used to think the earth is flat, and then we have evidence that the earth is round, that is now the more true answer based on the evidence that we have. If later we should learn to shape like a fucking octagon, okay, So that's kind of what we mean. You got any real life examples to highlight tu quoque? I think I just didn't I? Like, for instance, I'm like, ooh, I come on here and I'm like, ooh, we did the Lost Connections kind of book review episode. And I said, oh, it's really good. One of the reasons people might be depressed or people may not be because they're not getting enough social interaction and they're not getting outside in nature enough. I never I try, but I'm not good at getting out in nature. I'm a suburb girl. I don't like to go hiking. Like, this is all very new for me. So an example would be someone being like, okay, but you don't do that. So why are you telling other people to do it? That would be a tu quoque fallacy. Like whataboutism with the Ukraine war. Whataboutism is a different fallacy. The tu quoque fallacy is specifically about the person making the claim being a hypocrite. So, or attacking their personal behavior. So if you want to do like Putin or the US saying, oh, we should, other countries should stay out of countries' personal affairs if it has nothing to do with them. And someone comes and says, wait a minute, United States, you always interfere in geopolitics and you always interfere in the foreign affairs of other countries. So you're wrong. No, they could, that could still be you could say it's better for the world if countries didn't do this and still do it yourself. And whether or not it's better for the world is independent of what you're doing. So there's an example. Oh, yeah. Okay. Orangutan 141. Good example. Can I ask a question about your OF? Only if it's really quick, because this is not the place. Okay. Fallacy number 3, the middle ground fallacy. So this fallacy assumes that a compromise between two extreme conflicting points is always true. Arguments of this style ignore the possibility that one or both of the extremes could be completely true or false, rendering any form of compromise between the two invalid as well. So for instance, here's one. Girls on OnlyFans want to keep porn accessible, and religious conservatives want to ban it. So the best thing to do is to keep it, but add a lot of restrictions. So basically, this is assuming that because two extremes or two people hold opposite positions, that therefore the true answer is in the middle, which you can see how it's a fallacy. It could be better to ban porn if they're right. It could be better to keep porn if we're right. And it could be anywhere in the middle that could actually be right. And then we're getting into, can anything be right? Metaethics, morality, like that's different. But to say like, oh, conservatives want the tax rate to be 10%, liberals or Democrats want the tax rate to be 30%, so then it should be 15%, or whatever the middle is, 25%. So be 20, wouldn't it? My math is not good. Is it full frontal or censored? Nothing is censored. Everything is shown out on my Instagram. I mean, not Instagram, on my OnlyFans. So yeah, everything. Thank you for answering him. Better than porn. Thank you. Oh, thank you guys. Okay, we're learning here. Okay, let's not get distracted by the hot substitute teacher, apparently, with her cleavage out. I look like I'm about to do a live, but I'm actually not. I came home from the airport, took a quick shower. My hair's a mess, and I was like, I can't go on completely naked, so we threw this on. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. So number 4 is called the no true Scotsman fallacy. So often used to protect assertions that rely on universal generalizations. This fallacy inaccurately deflects counterexamples to a claim by changing the positioning or conditions of the original claim to exclude the counterexample. So the reason it's called the no true Scotsman is like, this is when people go, no real blah, blah, blah would do this. No true Scotsman does X. So for instance, no actual lawyer, no good lawyer, there we go. No good lawyer would take off their clothes for money. Right? No true Scotsman, no good lawyer. So you see this a lot with high value men who make good money and have good jobs don't want to marry women on OnlyFans. And you're like, well, so and so, like you give a counterexample, or you're like, hey, but that's not true because this person. And then you're like, well, no real high value man, no actual high value man. You just make it, you disqualify all the examples people are giving you that disprove your claim by just saying, well, no real. Like no act, like you just change it into like, well, my definition is now the definition, and I don't think real, no real mathematicians use calculators. So now, like, why? Just because you said? Like, that's what no real Christian would ever become an atheist. Therefore, you want to perfect example. So this is called the no true Scotsman fallacy. This is one we see a lot. You're not. Yep. Okay, you guys are getting this. I'm a low value man. That's why I can't afford to pay for porn. I don't know. I finished reading this book on the red pill world, and the only solid definition we had for high value man from any of these, because it's hard, that's the thing, it's part of what they do. They talk about this no real high value man. No, okay, well, it's like, what is the criteria? Can you tell us? And they can't really tell us because everything they say sounds fucking stupid. So the only one that ever did it was Kevin Samuels, where he's like, you must make $10,000 a month for at least 3 years. You must have a job where you have a network of other high, like it was the dumbest thing ever. And it's like, this is what makes a high value man. Like, again, this is one of those things where I'm like, how am I objectifying myself by, treating my body as a commodity? But men are treating themselves as just ATM machines and vessels of external validation, and that's supposed to be good for them. Okay. That's what determines your value. Like it'd be like if I was to say, here's how to be a high value woman. Number one, have breasts that are over like a D cup or higher. Have a waist that is like blah blah. Have a waist to hip ratio that is blah 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 blah. Like if I did that, how many people would be like, this is so fucking sad that she thinks this is where her value lies. Now people make the mistake of thinking just because I sell digital access to my body that I think that's where my value lies. No, I just think that it's a great capital that I have, and I want to use that capital. I don't place my my identity based on this. Like if people were like, oh, what are some things about you? I wouldn't be like, well, I have huge tits. That I'd be like, I am somebody that operates with high integrity. I love that about myself. I'm somebody that's intellectually curious. These are all the things that I place my value in, like the person that I am. Just because I'm selling digital access to my body sexually doesn't, like, to me, that doesn't mean that. But if I were to say, no, this is what high value means, it means that I'm young and attractive in this, that would be actual objectification. And these red-pilled men, that's what they do. I'm like, this is really sad. Like, I see you as more than how much money you make and what other men respect you. You don't see yourself as that? That's unfortunate to me. But then don't turn around and tell me I'm objectifying myself, because I've never seen greater objectification than telling people that their value resides in shallow external things like money and status. All right, that was a tangent. Definitions I sent us, please. They never really provide those. Yeah. Khalid, not nice. Okay, nobody can read that, so we're good. Have you read a book called Magic Bullets by Nick? Is it Savoy? If you want to refute the red pill stuff, that might be a good place to start. Oh, I didn't. I just had one book on it. I have some other, see, this is the thing. I have so many books I want to fucking read, but that can be on my list. I actually finally want to read The Paradox of Choice. I think it'll be an easy read. So I actually picked that up this weekend. I was visiting family in Portland, and we had the biggest bookstore in the world, the Powell's, on Burnside. And I was like in heaven, especially in the atheist philosophy section, psychology section. Lost Connections was there. I sent a snap of it to Hazard Stamp, but I picked up some books, and I think that might be my next one. I also really want to read, it's downstairs. And I want to finish The Selfish Gene. I've started it. I never finished it. Okay, anyways. No true Scotsman happens a lot when debating religious folks. I was abused in the church, and when I share that story, some Christians say, oh, that abuser wasn't real. Yeah, no real Christian would do X. Books in a store, what a concept. Yeah, I do like everything online. I did all law school online. I just did e-textbooks mostly because I was always in sexy ass outfits and I didn't want to like carry fucking textbooks with me if I didn't have to. But when it comes to actually reading for fun, I like physical books. Yeah, add magic bullets. Okay, sounds good. I have a really long list. That's what I mean. I don't have time to read everything. Okay. So next one, red herring fallacy. This is a common one. A red herring fallacy is an attempt to redirect a conversation away from its original topic. So, example, sex work should be legal because two consenting adults should have the freedom to do what they want. Okay, but what about all the people struggling to make a living and can barely pay rent? That has nothing to do with you're changing the topic to something else. Or an example that people often give for a red herring is what the fuck is this? Decline. All right. Or oh yeah, like a cop pulls you over for speeding and you're like, well, there are real criminals out there. So that's a red herring because it has nothing to do with the fact that you got pulled over for speeding. So this is really common. A lot of people get it confused with whataboutism, but it doesn't have to be whataboutism. This is a little more broad. It's okay. I don't know if you're watching, Liza. When she leans back. All right. All-time 3 favorite books. Ooh, it's really, really, really hard. It depends. You have to give me like topics. Like you could say 3 top moral philosophy books, etc. And I am still one of those people that I'm like, the best ones I probably haven't even read yet. We've talked about a couple of them here. I did like Lost Connections. I wouldn't say it's like my top 3. If you're interested in the free will stuff we were talking about again, like I said, that Sam Harris book is super, super tiny. I would suggest reading The Moral Landscape by him too, even though I have my qualms with it overall. But I think if you're trying as an atheist to get to, or you're trying as just a skeptic, or even as a religious person to know about morality and how it works, you should be reading a bunch of different books about it, which is kind of what I'm doing because I'm trying to fine tune my morality argument right now. That's like the philosophical journey that I'm on at this moment. So I'm reading a lot about stuff like that. All right. I'm sorry. No, I don't have, well, the only DMs that you can be sure I'm going to check today are my OnlyFans and my Snapchat. If you DM me on Instagram or Reddit and stuff, I don't read it usually unless like there's something about the message or the person that sent it that I'm like, oh, like if it's like something for business or, or I recognize you from in here and you want to talk about, I do open anything that has to do with like if you want to give me feedback on a topic I've discussed. All right. I don't know, Jasmine. I've never found an argument that's proven to me that objective moral truths exist. Stay tuned for my episode on that because I used to agree with you. All right. Anyways, next. Slippery slope fallacy. We all should know this one. A slippery slope fallacy. The arguer claims that a specific series of events will follow one starting point, typically with no supporting evidence for the chain of events. If we normalize sex work, people will start promoting it to kids. Slippery slope argument. I mean, people use this with like a lot of social issues like gay marriage. Oh, if we let gay people get married, then people are going to turn gay, or they're going to make your kids gay. And some of them think that came to fruition. So that's the slippery slope argument, fallacy. And yet, since I am not what? Since I'm not a sociopath, I have to believe in another lesson. Okay. Morality is such a dense topic. It's probably going to take me multiple streams to even start to talk about it. Philosophy is one of those things where if people don't have a foundation, it's really hard to talk about. Like, in the free will episode, I had to explain determinism, compatibilism, and it's a little bit, I feel like that could have been done and you know what they say? There's that saying that if you can't explain something so that normal people can understand it, you don't know the topic well enough. I think that's where I'm at when it comes to morality. I'm not able to, until I'm able to kind of start to explain it in a succinct way to you guys, I don't want to talk about it because it gets too complicated. And to me, that just indicates that I'm not explaining it well. Even if you guys need to know a little bit of information, I want to be able to say it in the most succinct way. All right, anyways. All right. What you just said about I'm trying to do, that's the journey I'm on. I like that you have a particular purpose or goal in mind, aren't just wandering aimlessly from book to book. I don't think there's anything wrong with aiming. Okay, so people are different. Reading is always good. Now, for me, if I want to enjoy like a story or fiction, I think there's really great fiction. I think like you can learn a lot. Reading in general is good for you. It's good for your brain. You'll notice avid readers do not use the wrong your usually. Do not misspell. And we all can. I'm not saying never, right? But people who read a lot, they can write better, they can speak better, and they can engage better. So whatever you're reading, as long as it's not like a picture book and you're not four, is good for you. Personally, if I want to follow somebody's story, I like to just watch a TV show. I think TV is a really great form of art. And, if you're not watching which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, we all have our guilty pleasures. Like my guilty pleasure is like true crime. I have my stuff too, but I also think like watching really great TV shows with great character development, great filming, like that's also good for you too. Like being an people like to say like, oh, if you're just plop down on the couch watching TV, it depends what you're watching. Same with reading. There's called active reading where you're like taking notes, highlighting, sitting with the points. I think you can do that with watching stuff too. And I know like when I'm dating somebody, for instance, when you're dating somebody, I feel like you watch everything together. I feel like, people are like, oh, you're just sitting around watching shit with your, no, like, I feel like I like people who are actively watching. Like we're thinking about the message, all of that deeper. So point is that when it comes to books, I like to read nonfiction instead of fiction. You need to update your links on Linktree. So go to the beacons. Go to, I feel like they're not working regarding Insta. I'm going to check that really quickly. And if you're wrong, there will be consequences. I'm just kidding. What you're saying, Insta's not working? Let's see. Instagram. No, it took me there to the verified one. All right. It is getting dark. Should I turn on another light? Maybe I should just move this closer. The little ring light. Max that. All right, that'll have to do. Oh, I had to, when I got back from the thing, I always get Uber Black to go home. I don't like having people pick me up because I don't want to like talk to them. I'm just tired. And it is really hot here in Scottsdale. And they went to the wrong place. So even waiting outside 7 minutes, I felt like everything was melting. Are you an atheist? I am. If we legalize gay marriage and pedophilia will be legalized. Yeah, that's a slippery slope argument. So I know I misuse my your and your today, super ashamed. It happens to all of us. I feel like if I'm going to misdo anything, I do it's. Like sometimes I won't put the apostrophe in it's when I should or vice versa. So people always have their thing. I mean, I know it and I use it well 97% of the time, but when I go to the beacons, are you going to jasminejafar.me? Because when I click on it, it goes there. Let me try it on here. We have time today for the stream to go a little longer if we need to. Instagram. It went on my desktop too, guys. If other people want to try it, I guess the only thing I can do is relink it. The Suns are about to go crazy this season. I don't watch basketball. Could you do outfit check? No. Let's see. I know how to read at a 3rd grade level, so I'm going to make sure. Yes, I'm an atheist. Do you handle psychological questions? Yes, I do. I do like to keep things at least on topic until we get through this. And then if you guys want to ask me off topic shit, sure. There is a certain argument used to justify X, if exactly applied to some other argument, would also... Wait, what are you talking about? Yeah, okay. I feel like free will is not a black and white topic. I feel like there's more like a dog tied to a pole example where you can go as fast. But at the end of the day, you're still tied to the pole so quick. Okay, if you want to talk to me about free will, I did an episode on it like 2 weeks ago, and my DMs are open, and we could do a subsequent episode. But it's such a heavy topic that if we start getting into it now, we're no longer talking about logical fallacies. On your Twitch bio, not Instagram bio. Oh, so does my Twitch bio have the right links? Because I never haven't checked that in a minute. Moderator, that is what you're going to be doing is go on my Twitch when you have time. It doesn't have to be now, and make sure that the right beacons is attached. Because if you have the Jasmine Jafar or the Persian Princess 9999 one, then yeah, it's gonna maybe link to the old Instagram that is banned. It does not. Old IG names. Okay, so thank you for pointing that out. We shall get that fixed. All right, so we just did slippery slope, right? And it feels like everyone got that. So number 7 is the burden of proof fallacy, or it's also called the appeal to ignorance fallacy. So an appeal to ignorance is a claim that something must be true because it hasn't been proven false. It can also be a claim that something must be false because it hasn't been proven true. So really common one, God is real because you can't prove he's not real. So anytime somebody says, well, you haven't proved this isn't true, the burden of proof, because you're the one making the claim, is that you need to prove it's true. Just because I haven't proved it's not true doesn't mean that now we believe you. I feel like, let me know if that one's pretty straightforward to me, but religious arguments rely. Yeah, this is big on religion because they have to. Religion can't use sound logical arguments because being religious relies on faith, which if you're okay with that, nothing wrong with that. Like I've said, I think religious people are great, some of the best people in the world. But what bothers me is when religious people try to say that belief in religion is based on science or logic, because it's not. God of the gaps and whatnot. Yeah, so this is just well, you can't prove God isn't real, pretending that the burden of proof is equally on us both, because we're not saying, if you were to make a claim like God does not exist, I guess you could say yes. But most of the time, what atheists are really saying is there is not any reason, compelling evidence to believe in X. So an example to really easily shut this down is, well, you can't prove that, there isn't an invisible unicorn in my hand. So there is an invisible, no one would believe that. But when it comes to religion, people make this mistake quite a bit. I don't know, look up William Lane, Christian philosopher. I'm an atheist too, but if you want to add another book. I have listened to his debates. He's one of the few Christians, along with, is it Frank Turner? You know, that one guy that, do at least try. They use the cosmological, like they use all those different arguments. But I still I think they're easily debunked when you talk to, I think they lose a lot of the debates that they engage in, but that doesn't mean that their points are at least trying. They do make a lot of these fallacies. I think William Lane, is it William, or at least a lot of the Christian debaters I see, they do use this one even in particular. You can't tell me how how the universe came to be. You can't prove that it didn't come from God. So that's a reason to believe in God. I hear this with evolution versus Frank Turner. Yeah, he's easily debunked. I know. I haven't been impressed by any religious debater at all. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some that are better than others, and at least some that are willing to engage in these debates. A lot of religious people aren't. And I don't blame them because they know it's a losing battle a lot of the time, and they know it relies on faith. Even big religious um, pundits, like I would say, like even like a Ben Shapiro, like he doesn't like to debate religion because he knows he's not going to do well. Peterson just fucking changes the definition of everything and uses a bunch of word salad, and but he doesn't do well. And what do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? What do you mean in? What do you mean God? And just, or when you ask him, like I did Cosmic Skeptic, a great breakdown of this. When you ask him, were the events of the Bible actually true? And he's like, well, I mean, like this message is true. Well, and I like a great example Cosmic Skeptic made was like, well, you could say, was Hogwarts real? Well, the message of persevering your, whatever, and using friendship to fight evil, that's still real. No, like that's not the question. So again, it's very hard for religious people to be able to engage in these debates because religion is inherently founded on faith and not having evidence for things and believing in them anyway. In fact, that's part of the test on whether or not you can go to the afterlife is, did you believe in me when it wasn't clear that I was there, like God, right? This could literally be the determining factor on eternal paradise or eternal hellfire. So very hard to defend that. Okay, let me see. I hear this with evolution versus creation all the time. Even if evolution were proven wrong tomorrow, that doesn't automatically mean creationism is true. You still have to prove it. Yeah. So I think it was Matt Dillahunty that does the like a jar of candy, and someone goes, there is an even number of candy in there. And so you go, oh, how do you know? Oh, I just know there's an even number of candy in there. Do you believe there's an even number of candy in there? And you go, no. They're like, so you believe there's an odd number? No, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. Came here from Reddit, but wow, your ability to utilize the English language to speak on things like this kind of actually. Oh, well, thank you. Glad you came from Reddit to join my OF. You'll get some of that content, but this is just something I enjoy doing, and I feel like it helps people. Religion is compatible with regular society only if religions make all their points hella abstract to the point that they mean nothing. Yeah, so then it just tarnishes what religion is supposed to be. Atheists and theists are on the same level. They're fundamentally the same. Truth seeker is, they're not the same. You're gonna have to. You're not. I don't want to make this a religion thing, but yeah, that's just not blatantly not true. Or the book God, a debate between a Christian and atheist by William Lane Craig and Walter, whatever, Armstrong. I've never read William Crane Craig's work, but I've seen like 3-hour speeches, debates from him that I feel like I have a good understanding of the points that he make. And because my reading time is, like I said, limited, I wouldn't. Atheism to me is not intellectually stimulating in the sense that whether or not it's true, I think it's so obvious it's not. This is also why I wouldn't read a book on the reasons the earth isn't flat. Like, I'm sure there are great reasons, and there are people who are interested in having that talk, that debate. I'm not. Like, it's just not what I'm interested in. So I don't want to waste my time like 10, 12 hours reading his book when I don't think anything he said has been compelling, and I don't think the case for theism is compelling in the slightest, especially when it comes anything past deism, like when it comes to religion and Christianity or Islam or anything, then it's no. Have you ever tried psychedelics? I have. You guys are really off topic today. In regards to Ben Shapiro explicitly states that debating is not about finding the truth, but rather about humiliating the other person. That's unfortunately can be the case, but that's not always the case. Ben Shapiro is so informed by his religious upbringing and refuses to talk about it. I think he just realizes, because he's not a bad debater, I'm going to give him that that's not one he's going to win on. Like, at least he doesn't do what Peterson does. He doesn't say, well, what do you mean by God? I mean, God is just, the divine of our mental hierarchy. Like, just make shit up. Great, they're not discussions. Discussions are not one. So you can have discussions and debates. You don't have to. In a metaphorical, abstract sense, we can rely on the archetypes of the Bible to help lead us to God. However, you believe it to be. Jordan Peterson, probably. Watch the video I'm talking about. My moderator can even link it if he remembers. That's literally what he goes through. Like, what the fuck is Jordan Peterson saying? And then when you take it down, you're like, he's an atheist and he's just using this fucking language, this religious language for non-religious shit that he's saying. Like, he's like, oh, scientists are really theists because, and if you're in a, remember the one where he's like, if you're in a museum and you're appreciating the art, how can you say you're secular? And you're like, what? And then he just uses all these words, but then when you actually break them down, you're like, you're not saying shit. Like, at all. I fucking love Matt Dillahunty. I do too. Oh, wow. You should all listen to Indian scriptures about safe, pure self, where God and all those things sound childish. Interesting recommendation. Reddit, what is your opinion on the recent Reddit boycotts? As somebody who posts not safe for work content on Reddit, I'm gonna have to admit that, like, I'm just mortified of Reddit banning all not safe for work content, and I just want Reddit to at least be as much of a free speech platform as possible. So I'm deeply upset with the way that Reddit treated some of those third-party apps. I read the post by the creator of Apollo, and I was saddened by it, and I'm just constantly afraid of what Reddit's going to do next. So that's my opinion on it. All right. I just hate when people try to debate when I'm trying to have a conversation. Well, yeah, but even a conversation is going to have like some like pointing out a fallacy, but people are like, oh, you're trying to win. This isn't a debate. Well, no, we're having a discussion and you're making a claim that has a fallacy. So now I'm pointing out that fallacy. If you're having a conversation where you disagree, then you should still be backing up your claims with evidence and trying to persuade your, I don't want to say opponent, but the person you're having a conversation with. Personally, that's what I think. Now, if you're having a conversation where everyone just thinks and feels and whatever, then sure. This is an amazing discussion. I'm so glad I joined. Me too. And I'm glad you're on my OnlyFans. I know you are. So usually you get to go straight there and we get to have our other fun time, but not tonight. So glad you're here. I do this every Monday. How do I turn up? See, I don't know how to turn up the bright. Okay, there we go. I can turn up the brightness. Didn't know that. I've been like, my brightness was super down. I didn't know how to fix it. All right. Atheism stopped being edgy and cool like 10 years ago. I rather talk about intersectionality. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm over kind of my atheism like phase because I just feel like that's a topic I feel well versed on. I'll debate anybody who's religious. I'll probably just like refresh my brain on the arguments at the time because I can't think of all of them on the top of my head or how to debunk all of them from the top, but I can do most, honestly. The world's oldest profession knows a lot about pure consciousness. I joined for milkers, but I'm staying for this intellectual discussion. Thank you. My like the biggest fulfillment that I have in life is teaching people things because I have big tits. Like using my big tits to get people's attention, and then I can teach them about how to discern between good sources and bad sources and how to develop critical thinking skills. Like my job is done if I've done that for one person. I really dislike bad faith actors. That's my biggest pet peeve these days. Yeah, and then the question becomes, do we just let the bad faith actors run rampant then and be able to keep spreading their misinformation? Or I don't know, right? Use the word salad goat. If you read Jordan Peterson, he has a huge Disney boner in his metaphors. I've actually never read any of his books. That's just another one that, and again, I feel like the main books he's written have been really like targeted towards men. Not saying that I don't read. I actually want to read Richard Reeves' books of Boys and Men. That's actually might be next on my reading list. I ordered it on Amazon. It's like somewhere in one of my Amazon packages because I am interested in this topic of masculinity in men, but like from an actual source that like is like looks at science and data and isn't like fuck women, like, you know, the red pill world. So, but I don't really need to read a self-help book like for men, if that makes sense. I don't know if that would be the target demographic for his books. The worst is when religious people say, how can we have morality without God, as they give electroshock therapy to gay people. That is, what fallacy is this, guys? We just talked about it. All right. Rest in peace, Apollo app. Why does Matt Dillahunty always seem irritable, angry all the time? I don't see that. When I say theists and atheists are fundamentally the same, it means that they're both talking about God. If theists weren't there, atheists wouldn't exist. Truth seeker is what we should aspire to be, and being atheist is the first step. Well, when you say theists and atheists are fundamentally the same, and you're like, well, I just mean that both are talking about God, that's not what most people would say when you think they're the same. So the words you use matter, right? This is like when people are like, well, God is just energy. No, people have a meaning, a supernatural association with God. And usually when you say two things are the same without clarifying they're the same in X way, or people are like, you know. JP has an entire lecture series on The Lion King and Pinocchio, to name a few. He goes crazy deep into the word salads when breaking down symbolism in those films. Yeah. So would your superpower be your big tits or your big brain? Both. Why do I have to have one? How do you feel about transgender women competing? Okay, y'all are getting really off topic. I think we're on number 8 though. So how do I feel about transgender women compete? I think it's a complex issue that doesn't have a simple. Anytime someone's like, nope, yes, you know, I think David Pakman did a good breakdown of this too. So I'm not saying that I'm like all for it, but I'm also not saying that I'm completely against it. Like, again, I would want to see the data, maybe depending on the sport. Like, let's say maybe with golf, it's not a big deal. Maybe with hockey, it is more of a big deal. Maybe if you were on hormones from this age and you've been on them long enough, then the advantage you have is no longer statistically significant. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into it that, again, this is one of those things I don't know. And I would be very wary of people who think they know. Just made an OF just for you. Here's my stomach is growling. My mom brought me, so in my suitcase, because I went and visited home, she like packed like a bunch of rice with like this Persian, if you're Persian here, fisinjun, which is like this rice with like this pomegranate stew. It's really good. But she like, I like literally like took like my suitcase and like needed to grab something to like shower. And I'm like, there's just this big thing of rice. And I was really excited, but I didn't have time to eat it before this. So sitting out. Well, I'm glad you made an OF for me. Message me there. Not really though. If theists never existed, then everyone would just be an atheist. Okay, I'm not doing this. That's not an actual like, you know, this is like saying if men didn't exist, there would be no women. Well, everyone would just be a woman, so you wouldn't need that categorical distinction, is what you're, I guess, saying. When you say theists and atheists are the same in the way they're talking about God, that's not how most people perceive what you mean. Can you cite a scientific source to back up this claim about most people? So if I were to go through like what the definition of God, like theists and atheists are, and what people, if I were to look up God, what it means, I could look at a bunch of different definitions from a bunch of different sources, and you would pretty much get a good understanding. Or yeah, maybe there are studies of what does religion and God mean. You could go into history, all of that. You're going to notice there are some characteristics that people usually assign to God, namely being that this is somebody that is supernatural, and has supernatural like qualities. At least that's usually what people like think of when they think of God. And so if you're just going to say, well, God, and then talk about energy, this was actually a great exchange between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, where he did that. And Sam Harris is like, you can't do that. This is like you saying, because Jordan Peterson's like, well, you believe in God because God is just X. Everyone believes in God. And he's like, that's like saying, well, you believe in ghosts because ghosts are really just your relationship with the unseen. So you believe in ghosts. changing the definition of something beyond what the common place definition is in order to make a claim that wouldn't be true if you use the common definition, but using your definition is true without making that distinction clear. Like, I am defining this like this, which is not the way normal people define it. That is, in my opinion, intellectually dishonest. So when you're saying, well, theists and atheists are both talking about God, I said that's technically true, but usually people don't say, oh, atheists and theists are just talking about God, and that is the defining factor of atheists and theists. I would say the defining factor for atheists versus theists is theists believe in a supernatural creator of the universe, and atheists don't. All right. Off topic, but rice with pomegranate sounds so good. It is really good. All right. I'm sorry. Can you say what topic number 8 is again? Number 8 was, oh, we haven't done number 8 yet. So we've gone on a tangent. I think trans women are so rare in women's sports that we can take case by case maybe for certain. Yeah, this is another big thing. This is not like, if I was to say the top 50 issues in the United States today, this is not on the list. This is quite literally not on the list, or it's like number like 41 on the list. And people that want to talk about this so much, like, oh my God, what about like the 2 swimmers in the country that are doing this? I'm not saying they don't matter, but if we have, let's say, 3 hours a day to talk about politics, issues in society, what we're going to do about XYZ, we should not be spending even 30 minutes on this topic. And yet there are whole pundits and people who are just obsessed with the trans issue when it's so minuscule and overblown, in my opinion. I wholeheartedly believe that. Agreed, it's a solution in search of a problem. States are passing bans on trans athletes, and there's only 1 or 2 trans athletes in the entire state. Yeah, a lot of, especially, so what's crazy to me is a lot of the people that are so like avidly against this are like conservatives in states where like how many trans people did you see this week? Like, again, like, I've grown up in very progressive, like Pacific Northwest, and where it was pretty accepted, like for a while. And like, I just spent all week and in downtown Portland, and you do see more than you would see in other places. Like, I see more there than I would see in Arizona. But even there, I'm like, this is not even a significant minority. Like, it's just maybe, I would say, like, at the most, if you're in the most liberal, like weird, whatever they call a part of Portland, it's like 10 to 20% of people that look like they don't fit in traditional gender binary categories, I guess, however you want to say it. And I know that if you're walking around Nashville, you're not seeing what you're seeing when you're walking around downtown Portland. So I don't know why they're so obsessed with them. Theists and atheists are barely scratching the surface of totality of being human and what it means to have consciousness when we go into it, reality of ourselves, and ask ourselves, who am I? The real conversation starts. So you're saying they're both, so everything is talking about our conscious experience on this planet, like literally every topic. So I don't know if that is something that is specific to the topic of atheism. Is your country safe to visit? This is a very deep question that I need to think about. I think the trans issue is talked about so heavily because it's one of the main things that caused such an uproar within the entirety of America, despite how minuscule it really is. It's actually not, from the actual polls we see, it's not causing an uproar for the majority of Americans. It's actually I didn't go fully into the poll, but I saw polls that stated that people actually think, like, it's one of those things that the media focuses on a lot, but if you go out into day-to-day life, yeah, you're going to meet people who are like, oh my God, this is the most important thing in the world. But when you actually poll people on what matters to them, a lot of them are like, hey, inflation. I want to talk about how we're going to get inflation down more than I care about Leah Thomas in a swimming meet. Maybe it was Vosh who said there are fewer than 18 trans athletes than people who get struck by lightning each year. I thought what really telling was when Matt Walsh went on Rogan and he's like, oh, there's been over 1 million kids on puberty blockers. And then whoever Rogan has sitting there that usually does a fucking terrible job of fact checking anything, fact checked it. And it was like less than like 1,000. And it's like 1 million kids and 1,000, like what? So again, good idea to check your sources, right? Not listen to what one of you guys said earlier, where it was like, oh, well, I don't like Rogan, so I'm not going to believe that. Or I like Rogan, so I'm going to believe that. No, some of that stuff is easy to figure out. Like, I don't have a source handy on that though. See, I love stuff like this. This is what I do. Oh, I heard this. I don't remember exactly where it's from. Don't take my word for it. Versus the US Census says this. And so there's good reason to believe this, Yes, generally the United States is a safe place to visit. Yeah, I remember that. Matt Walsh with the worst comb over compensation beard combo of all time. Yeah, Matt Walsh, I think, is a crazy person. He's a loony tune. Okay. Number 8 is the sunk cost fallacy. With the sunk cost fallacy, so if you've done, I've only done like Econ 101, but there's also all this when it comes to economics, but also in philosophy and psychology. So sunk cost fallacy is when the arguer justifies their decision to continue a specific course of action by the amount or time or money they've already spent on it. Example, I spent all this time in law school, so I have to be a lawyer. Or I have to, I spent all this money on becoming a podcaster, which I haven't yet, but actually I did. I actually have my room ready to go, but I still need to get the equipment and we still need to do final touches. We're going to have a big sign that says Thoughts with Thoughts. Wait for it. But yeah, that is that. Sorry to get off topic again, but your OnlyFans is amazing. Thank you, Ronnie the King. It is amazing. People should check it out. I hate to call myself this, but or say this because usually it doesn't need to be said, but I will say, because I'm proud of myself for this, and it's true, that I work really hard to make sure that my OnlyFans is something that I think is worth paying for. Now, you don't have to agree, but that it's important to me that I do that. Okay. Oh, I love the title. Okay. Number 9 is the personal incredulity fallacy. So this fallacy of appeal to personal incredulity is committed when the arguer presumes that whatever is true must be easy to understand or to imagine. So the big, what is it called? Example that people use for this is evolution, when somebody holds up like a chimp and they hold it. Like, how can they be cousins? Because you don't understand how it works. You don't understand the intricacies or the complexity of how evolution works. It can't be true. So I would say with free will, the idea that we don't have free will is way too confusing and like it's way too out there. I don't get it. So we must have free will. So do you think something isn't true because you don't understand it or because it's difficult to understand? So that's what that fallacy is. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? And then we're number 10. This is the fallacy. So I thought this would be a good one to end on for now. We could do more fallacies in the future. Let me know if you guys want 10 more. But this is just because someone's argument relies on a fallacy doesn't necessarily mean their claim is inherently true. So for instance, I'm going to use an example from last week. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at tests. So last week, so I'm going to give an example. And if you guys remember from last week, since apparently I'm a teacher, what fallacy is this? Women started working more, and recent studies show that women are less happy. Therefore, working more made them less happy. Does anyone remember what fallacy it is? Why are there half chimp, half humans running around? Evolution is just a theory. Yep, that would be an example of somebody thinking that just because they don't get how something happened, that it didn't happen. Correlation versus causation. So that's true. It was also the post hoc, which is that just because something came before something, so women stop working and then later they've become whatever, just because A happened before B does not mean A caused B, but then the correlation causation makes sense too, because just because A and B are happening simultaneously, which they still are, it doesn't mean A caused B or B caused A. But the fallacy is to think that, oh, just because that's a fallacy, that means that this isn't true at all, that women started working more, and recent studies show that women are less happy, therefore working more made them less happy. That could still be true. But this is just not the way to prove it. It could still be independently true because it does have evidence or data, or it might in the future, even though it doesn't now. So just because something has a fallacy in it, I think all that shows is that that argument is not sound at this time for the reason or the way that the person who made the claim made it. You shouldn't believe it because of that. Oh, no, that's not true because there's a fallacy here, but it could still be true through other means. Does that make sense? Yes. Also a great West Wing episode. I've never watched The West Wing. I want to. Two wrongs make it right. I like how you capitalized all of that. Is that probably a fallacy? Also, a lot of fallacies have like multiple names, which makes it like there's begging the question and circular. They're the same. The appeal to common belief is also called the bandwagon fallacy. So some of them have multiple names, which makes it confusing. All right, that was 10 more. Looks like some of you guys, I haven't seen them as much, so I'm glad some new people joined. A lot of people seem to watch after, because these are starting to get like thousands of views, which I appreciate. But before I go and try to catch up on my OF stuff, anything else? Comments, questions, concerns, you guys can always, like I said, if you have my OnlyFans or you have my Snapchat, I will see it the quickest. On Instagram, if you have podcast feedback, and I can tell from reading like this top of the like the little bit of the message, I do open those as well. And if you guys want to email me at my email and tell, ooh, you guys, look at these muscles I'm building. That's crazy. I'm glad I joined. We'll chat on OF. Perfect. If you guys have anything you disagree with me on, agree with me on, you guys have feedback, you guys have topics you want me to discuss in future episodes, book recommendations, I love those, podcast recommendations. If you're asking me for book recommendations or podcast recommendations, I love that. I also have a Discord for some of the people in here. We're not too active on it, but if like, for instance, some of you on here that I can tell are just intellectually curious, and you want that little community of people that are intellectually curious, that's what that is for. And yeah, and if you want to see boobies or you want to see both, which I know a lot of you do, that's where my OnlyFans is for. We're multifaceted people, or I'm a multifaceted person, so I give you different kinds of content. I forgot to ask, do you have a favorite Pokemon or animal? I never knew anything about Pokemon until when Pokemon Go originally came out in this. Oh, I can't wait to eat. In the summer of, what year was it? This was a long time ago. I started becoming obsessed with the game. So my only knowledge is from the game, and I loved Ninetales because she was like pretty. And then my favorite animal, I like monkeys. Because they're so like human-like. If you haven't watched Chimp Empire on Netflix, I recommend it. It's wild how crazy good technology has gotten, that like even when you're seeing real monkey, like you're seeing chimps super up close, it's better detailed than if you were to actually be there. It seems like it almost looks like CGI because it's so crazy how they're getting all the detail on chimps, and it's super interesting. So that's just a random recommendation. 2016. I already forgot what I was thinking about when it came to, what was it? What was I? Why did we want to know that? I'm not even on an edit book, guys, and I'm forgetting. 2016 Pokemon. Got it. Yeah, and I actually went to with my family, we went to Europe that summer, and we went to like Nice, which is like a city on the south of France with like a beach and stuff. And there was this one park, like little grass area where everybody was sitting and playing Pokemon Go. And I would literally, like, I wouldn't go to the beach. I would like wake up and I'm like, bye mom, bye dad. And I would sit there and I would like just be throwing balls and everyone had the lures going. Yeah. I don't play it now, but I know some people still do. Pokemon Go, yes. Pokemon Go to the poll, guys. Yeah, that was a great moment from Miss Clinton. Pokemon Go to the polls. Ah. We're like, no. Yeah, she's had her moments. All right. Well, I don't know what next week's topic's going to be yet. I'm open to suggestions. There's so many things I want to talk about. It's one of those things. I have so many topics I want to talk about, and I probably, even if I do this every Monday till I die, I will run out. So she always keeps, I was about to say, I remember the hot sauce in her bag too. Oh God. Why do all of the, like Hillary Clinton, like Kamala Harris, like, can't we have like, and then people are like, it's sexism. Like, no, I think they're very likable women. I think these women in particular are very not likable. You should talk about the Patriot Act. Okay, I could. I'd have to refresh on it. We did the Restrict Act not long ago. Are you hopping on OF after this? I usually do. I can't today. One, I have to go eat. And two, my stomach is really red from Silfram. It's like microneedling. I'm going to do it on my face next Tuesday. All right. Katie Porter would be great. She's damn fine. If I ran, would you guys vote for me? I'm just kidding. I never want to be in politics. All right, lean back. I mean, you just joined my OF. You have plenty of content on there. And you can message me. I'm going to check my messages after I fucking eat this Fissenjun. I'm going to show you guys actually what Fissenjun is and what it looks like. Because it's so good. I don't know how to make it. I don't know how to cook it all. But you can eat it with rice. Okay, so, I mean, this is the stew, but then you put it with like rice. And it's so good. I am like literally usually like the most picky eater. I have a very, like, I would say American shitty taste in food. Like, I'm just like, can I have a grilled cheese? Can I have a hot dog? This is one of the only like Persian food, even though Persian food is so good. Because I have the taste palate of a 7-year-old American child. This is one of the only things. So that's why my mom goes crazy because I don't live with her anymore. So every time I go there, she makes me like I was there for like 3 days and she's like, oh my God, we need to make you like, and then she just stuffed it in my suitcase. I'm like, I don't even know how I got through security with this. Have you ever made, I haven't made shit. I don't know how to make anything. I don't know how to, I do like nothing. Like people are like, why don't you get HelloFresh? I'm like, I don't know how to follow like, I don't know how to use like a measuring cup, nothing. Persian cuisine is the best. It is really good, but like I said, I have shitty taste in food. It's because my parents didn't force me to eat it. Like if I was like, I don't want this, I want like, you know, whatever, like they were like, okay. And then I feel like I didn't develop like my taste palette didn't, because my sister's the same way. But I haven't eaten since like 7 a.m. So it's been like over 12 hours. Palestinian food is godlike. Have I had Palestinian food? Probably not. I had a Burmese. There's a restaurant in Oregon where like robots serve you. And my cousin's kids were like, ooh. And it was Father's Day. So my dad's in the Middle East right now, but we wanted to take him to a Burmese restaurant. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I didn't even know what that was. And I'm like, me and like my cousin's 7-year-old are like, want a 7 McDonald's? I have terrible taste in food. Did your sister also do OnlyFans? No, she does not. She's a litigation attorney. Okay. I will see you guys next week. And stay tuned on my OnlyFans for when I'll be able to go live. Bye.